Your brother has done more for this family than you ever could. My mom said, while living in the house I just bought for her, I sold it without telling anyone and said, let's see what he can do. If you'd met me 5 years ago, you'd have seen a wide-eyed guy with a fresh engineering degree, 2 internships under his belt, and a duffel bag full of ambition. I was the first in my family to graduate college. My parents were proud, or at least they used to say they were. My younger brother Tyler was still in high school, then already coasting on charm and excuses. You know the type. Skipped classes, but somehow made it the teacher's fault. Crashed his first car and blamed the slippery road. Even though the sun had been out for 3 days straight, I didn't mind back then. I figured he was just going through a phase. I was the older one, the responsible one, the fixer. My first job paid $68,000, after taxes and rent for my studio apartment. If you could call that glorified closet an apartment, I still sent home $500 every month. My mom said it helped with groceries and utilities. Dad said not to worry about it, but I knew they needed it, so I kept sending it. When the pandemic hit, things got worse back home. Dad's factory cut shifts, then closed altogether. Mom lost her part-time job at the library. Tyler, he dropped out of community college and got really into crypto and conspiracy theories. I didn't say anything. Everyone was unraveling in their own way, but I upped my payments to $800. Then in 2021, my tech startup got acquired. It wasn't life-changing money, not yet. But my stock options vested, and after taxes, I walked away with just under $300,000. First thing I did, paid off my parents' mortgage. I still remember the phone call. "Wait, you what?" my mom said, laughing nervously like, "I just told a bad joke. It's gone, Mom. No more payments. It's yours." There was a silence then. "You shouldn't have done that, honey, that's too much." But Dad cried. Actually cried. That was the only time I'd ever heard his voice shake like that. And Tyler, he texted me. "Nice flex, bro." So what do I get? I told myself it was a joke. By late 2022, I was making over 6 figures. Remote work gave me flexibility, and I found a charming little 2-bedroom outside Seattle. Still modest, still grounded. Every bill back home still on me. I paid their internet, gas, water, electricity, phone plans. My name was on every account. I even set up autopay for their property taxes just to be safe. You'd think that kind of support would come with some appreciation, or at least neutrality. But what I didn't realize is that when people come to expect your help, it stops being a gift and starts being a duty. And the moment you falter even slightly, it's seen as betrayal. It was a dinner last month that cracked everything open. I'd flown home for Dad's birthday. Nothing fancy, just a backyard barbecue with some relatives, a few neighbors, and enough potato salad to feed a football team. I brought a nice bottle of whiskey and some steaks. Real ones, not the bulk pack kind from the freezer section. I even picked up a Bluetooth speaker because their old radio was practically fossilized. Dinner started out fine. Tyler was there, loud as usual, retelling some story about almost making $80,000 from a coin called banana cash or something equally ridiculous. He wore sunglasses at night and kept checking his phone like someone important was waiting on him. My mom laughed at every joke he cracked, even the ones that barely qualified as sentences. About halfway through the meal, my aunt made a comment about how lucky my parents were to have such a generous son. I smiled, assuming she meant me, but then Mom said it. Sharp, casual, and loud enough that 3 conversations stopped mid-sentence. "Well, Tyler's actually done more for us than Adam ever will." At first I thought I'd misheard. I literally blinked like a cartoon character trying to replay it in my head. What I said lightly with that forced laugh you use when you're giving someone a chance to walk it back. She didn't flinch. "I mean, yeah, Adam sends money and all, but Tyler's here. He keeps us company, runs errands, helps with the yard. That matters more, you know." Tyler smirked, said nothing, and took another bite of corn on the cob. I stared at her. This woman, this mom, who I'd been covering for, protecting, supporting, who had never once asked how I was doing, never once called to check in unless the Wi-Fi was down. She was minimizing years of sacrifice because her golden child mowed the lawn once a week and sat on the couch for moral support. My dad didn't say a word, just looked down at his plate like it had become incredibly fascinating. I felt heat crawl up my neck, but I stayed quiet. I didn't want to make a scene. Not there, not in front of relatives who'd already whispered things like, "Oh, Tyler's so charming and he's just finding his path." I excused myself early and went back to my hotel. I didn't sleep that night, not because I was angry, though I was, but because I was rethinking everything. The mortgage, the utilities, the hours on the phone with Comcast, when they couldn't figure out why the internet kept dropping. The time I took off work to help repaint the living room. The holidays I skipped vacations for just to come home and be told you're too quiet or you should be more like Tyler. He's so fun. And now apparently he'd done more than I ever would. I checked the deed that night. It was still in my name. I'd put it there when I paid off the mortgage thinking it'd be safer that way just in case. And now for the first time, I was glad I had. The next morning I smiled through breakfast like nothing had happened. Tyler made a joke about me being sensitive and said something about crying in Bitcoin. Mom chuckled. Dad sipped his coffee and stayed silent, but in my mind I was already flipping switches quietly, carefully. Because if Tyler had done more for them, then maybe it was time he did more. And maybe it was time I stopped footing the bill for their selective memory. I didn't go no contact right away. That would have been too easy. And honestly too sudden for anyone to learn a lesson. I wanted to understand, I wanted to see if it was just a one-time comment from my mom or if I'd been blind this entire time to something much uglier. So I played along. After that dinner, I spent 2 more days at home, smiled through it, helped clean out the garage like nothing happened, picked up coffee for my mom, and brought Dad a new pair of thermal gloves for the winter. When Tyler bragged about his new business opportunity, which turned out to be a dropshipping course he paid $900 for, I nodded politely. I even asked questions just to keep the peace, but every little thing started adding up. Like the way my mom suddenly had so many chores she couldn't get to whenever Tyler was around. "Oh, honey, can you help me clean out the attic? My back's acting up." Never asked Tyler, never even looked his way, or how Dad started mirroring her comments. "You're lucky you're good with money, Adam, 'cause you sure don't talk much. Like being quiet made me defective." Or the kicker. That night when I overheard them in the kitchen, I had gone to the back porch to take a call, and on my way back in, I passed by the kitchen window cracked open just enough for voices to leak out. Mom and Tyler. "He acts like he's the only one who works," she was saying. "Just because he sends money doesn't mean he gets to act better than us." Tyler laughed. "Yeah, dude thinks he's Jeff Bezos or something. I swear, Mom, if I had that kind of cash, I'd buy you a real house, not this old thing." "Oh, don't say that," she giggled. "You know you're the one we count on around here." I stood there in the dark, my hand still on the doorknob. My throat felt tight, not from anger, but from this strange, icy clarity. They meant it. This wasn't just a fluke comment at dinner. This was the way they saw the world. Tyler, the golden boy who could do no wrong, and me, the utility company with a heartbeat. By the time I flew home, I had made a quiet decision. I wasn't going to yell. I wasn't going to write some long, tear-filled email. I was just going to stop. No announcements, no drama, no hint of guilt, just step back and watch. The first thing I did was switch the deed on the house into a revocable trust under my name. No more direct ownership, just a little legal firewall, something quiet and visible. Then I reviewed the bills. They were all still under my accounts with my email as the contact easy access. I paused the autopay on the electric first. That was just a test, a small one. Within 3 days, I got a call from my mom. "Hey, sweetie," she said, voice overly sweet. The lights flickered twice last night, and this morning the oven wouldn't turn on. Did the power company screw something up again?" I feigned concern. Weird. I'll call and check, but I didn't. And 2 days later, she called again, this time more annoyed. "I just got a notice that the payment didn't go through. Did you update the card?" I waited a beat. "No, I haven't changed anything. Maybe you should call them directly." "Oh well, can you take care of it?" "Your father was trying to watch the game and the TV shut off. Maybe Tyler can help," I said quietly. She went silent. It was the first crack. Over the next few weeks, I slowly peeled back the support. Gas bill, internet, then water. Each time I acted confused or unavailable. Sorry. I was slammed with work or shoot. I thought that one was still active. And each time the tension on the other end of the line grew. Tyler predictably did nothing. The first time the Wi-Fi cut out, he drove to a Starbucks and posted on Instagram about how hard work never stops laptop computer hot beverage. The next time he borrowed the neighbor's connection by standing on the porch with his phone in the air like a TV antenna. The worst part, they still didn't say thank you. Not once. Not even in retrospect. They were more irritated than anything. Like a vending machine had eaten their dollar. But I wasn't doing this for thanks anymore. I was doing it for clarity. And that clarity came one Saturday night when I got a call from my Aunt Dad's sister, Denise. "Hey Adam," she said. "Listen, I just wanted to ask if everything's okay with you and your folks." I blinked. "What do you mean?" Well, she hesitated. "Your mom was over here earlier and she seemed really upset. Said you'd cut them off completely. Said she had to dip into her savings to pay the water bill. Then she said something about you trying to control them by holding the house over their heads. I laughed short and sharp. Control them. I paid off their mortgage. I've been covering everything for 5 years. I know, sweetheart. I told her that. She's spinning it like you're punishing them. I sighed. Did she mention Tyler? She said he's doing everything he can to keep them afloat. I had to physically stop myself from hurling my phone across the room. After I hung up, I sat on my couch for a long time just staring at nothing. The betrayal wasn't the bills or the lies or even the lack of appreciation. It was the twisting of it all. The way they were rewriting the story to make me the villain. And Tyler, he was eating it up. He started posting vague tweets. When someone only gives to feel powerful, they were never generous in the first place. Or fake love is when the help comes with strings. I didn't follow him, but a mutual friend screenshot them for me. I felt sick not because of what he was saying, but because he believed it, or at least he wanted other people to believe it. I had become the cautionary tale in his personal redemption arc. Then came the final straw. 3 weeks ago, I got a call from my mom. It was short cold. Adam, your father and I talked, and we'd appreciate it if you transferred the deed to us fully. It just makes things cleaner legally. I almost dropped the phone. You want me to give you the house? It's our house, she snapped. You paid it off for us, but now it's in your name, and that doesn't feel right. Doesn't feel right, I repeated. My heart was pounding. Tyler agrees, she added, like that would make me fold. He said, if you really cared about us, you wouldn't make us feel like guests in our own home. I was quiet for a long moment. Then did he say anything else? She hesitated. He also said, you've been holding this over our heads, that you're trying to punish us. Punish them. Punish them for what I had bent over backwards for years, quietly, consistently. I never asked for anything in return, not even affection. And now they were accusing me of manipulation because I'd finally taken a step back. That was the moment, the actual breaking point. Because it wasn't just favoritism anymore. It was warping reality to make me into the enemy. And Tyler. He was the golden boy general leading the charge with a self-satisfied smirk and a Twitter following of 300 people who thought he was deep. That night, I sat down with a glass of wine and opened up every account. I stared at the property file, looked at the utility log, thought about all the years my 20s spent worrying about whether my mom remembered to refill her blood pressure meds or if Dad's heat would stay on through the winter. And then I thought about Tyler and that sentence. He's done more for us than you ever will. I closed the tab slowly because the next move that was going to change everything. The first week after that call, I felt nothing. Not anger, not sadness, just blank. Like someone had reached into my chest and unplugged something essential. I still woke up at 6:30, still made my pour-over coffee, still sat down at my desk like I always did, but I wasn't there. I'd click around my email, half-heartedly, read Slack messages, smile on Zoom calls when I needed to, but inside it was just static. It didn't hit me until a few nights later. I was lying on the couch in the dark Netflix show I wasn't watching when I glanced at my phone. A notification Tyler just posted. Nothing hurts like realizing your family only loved what you gave them. The caption wasn't tagged no names, but it didn't have to be. That's when it finally landed. I wasn't just being excluded, I was being erased. Every dollar I'd spent, every birthday flight, every grocery run, water heater, fix busted Wi-Fi call gone, scrubbed from the family story like I'd never mattered. And what made it worse, they weren't even trying to hide it. That night I cried. Not like a single tear down the cheek movie cry, like ugly cried on the floor in my hoodie, shoulders shaking, nose running, chest heaving. I hadn't cried like that since college. I don't even know what triggered it. Maybe it was that word family because I was starting to realize I didn't have one anymore. The next morning I called in sick for the first time in years, told my manager I had a stomach thing. He was understanding. I think he knew it wasn't just that. Then I did something that surprised even me. I opened a blank Google Doc and wrote things I've done for them that they'll never acknowledge. The list started small. Paid off their mortgage, covered utilities for 5 years, bought mom's prescription meds every month, flew home for every holiday, bought dad's hearing aids when insurance denied the claim, helped Tyler get out of his speeding ticket, drove mom to her biopsy appointment when Tyler said he was too busy. Before I knew it, it was 3 pages long, single-spaced. I didn't write it for revenge. I wrote it because I needed to remember, because when people gaslight you long enough, you start to forget the truth. And I couldn't afford to forget mine. That list became my anchor. Every time I felt doubt creep in, like maybe I had been too controlling, too cold, too distant, I'd read it. And slowly, that static started to clear like tuning a blurry radio station until you finally hear the music underneath. Around that time, my friend Olivia invited me out for dinner. We hadn't talked much since the pandemic, but she had always been one of those low-maintenance friends who could disappear for months and pick up right where we left off. She looked at me across the table and said, "You look hollow." I laughed. "That's because I am." She didn't push, just sipped her wine and said, "Talk to me." I told her everything from the barbecue dinner to the deed call. All of it. I hadn't said it out loud until then, and once I started, it poured out like floodgates had snapped. She didn't interrupt, didn't try to fix it, just listened. Like really listened. At the end, she said something I'll never forget. "Adam, you were trying to buy love from people who never learned how to give it." That hit harder than anything my mom ever said. It stuck with me all week because deep down I knew she was right. I'd been playing this silent game for years, trying to earn affection, earn inclusion, earn belonging, and every time I thought I'd done enough, the goalposts moved. I'd been walking a treadmill with no off switch, so I stepped off. Literally, I booked a trip. It wasn't anything fancy, just a cabin up in the San Juan Islands. Off-grid, no Wi-Fi, no reception, just pine trees, cold air, and silence. For the first time in years, I wasn't checking bill due dates or calling in prescriptions. I wasn't wondering if the furnace filter needed replacing or if Tyler had crashed another car. I just sat, read, took long walks, cooked meals slowly, like it was an art instead of a chore. And somewhere in that quiet, something started to shift. I realized I didn't miss them, not the way I thought I would. I missed the idea of them, the dream I'd built in my head, the supportive parents who bragged about me to friends, the brother who'd call me when something went right, or even when it didn't. But the real versions, the ones who took and twisted and dismissed. No, I didn't miss them at all. When I got back to Seattle, I was clearer than I'd been in years. I started making changes. First, I met with a financial advisor, not just to review my assets, but to build something for me, a real future one where I wasn't bleeding support into a black hole. She helped me set up a retirement plan, a travel fund, and even a down payment for a real house. Not the tiny apartment I'd been crammed in for 3 years. Then I called the contractor. I'd been putting off converting the second bedroom into an office/hobby space. Told myself I didn't need it, but screw that. I wanted it. Within a month, the carpet was ripped, fresh paint was up, and a big desk with a view of the city skyline sat waiting for me every morning. I also picked up woodworking. Not because I was good at it, I wasn't, but because it forced me to slow down, to measure, to focus. My first project, a coffee table with wobbly legs and too much varnish. I still keep it. Therapy came next. I had danced around the idea before, downloaded the apps, bookmarked clinics, even filled out a few get-matched forms, but I never committed. It always felt like admitting defeat. Like if I went to therapy, it meant my family had won, but it didn't. Therapy wasn't for them. It was for me. So I went weekly. Sometimes I talked. Sometimes I just sat there and tried not to cry. My therapist, a sharp, warm woman named Clara, helped me unpack years of guilt I didn't even realize I was carrying. "I think you grieve the wrong person," she said one day. "What do you mean? You keep grieving your mom. But I think you're mourning the version of her you created, not the one that actually exists." I stared at her, stunned, because she was right. The woman in my head, the one who hugged me after my college graduation and whispered, "You make us so proud." She died a long time ago. If she was ever real to begin with, the real one, she was just someone who needed someone to blame when life didn't turn out the way she wanted. And Tyler, he was the perfect scapegoat's opposite. Charming, irresponsible, full of promises he'd never deliver. They needed a villain and a hero. I'd just been cast before I knew there was a script. It took time, months, honestly, but something in me healed. I wasn't fixed. I wasn't over it, but I was stronger. I stopped checking their social media, stopped answering texts, stopped hoping. I started dating again, carefully, slowly, but with more honesty than before. I told people up front, my family situation is complicated, but I'm working on building something better. And that's what it felt like, building brick by brick. A life that wasn't about pleasing others, but finally, about me. Then came the message. Out of nowhere, a single line from my mom. "Your father is in the hospital. Call me." That was it. No context, no greeting, no warmth, just that. And as I stared at it, thumb hovering over the screen, I felt the coldness seep in. Because in that moment, I knew something had changed. Not just in them, but in me. This time I wasn't going to run back. This time I wasn't going to play savior. This time the next move was going to be mine. I didn't reply right away. In fact, I stared at that message for over 2 hours. Just sat there on my couch phone, face up on the table, watching the screen go dark and light up again. That line, "Your father is in the hospital." Call me. Burn like a brand. Not please, not we need you. Not even his condition. Just call me like I was the help. Like I was still the kid with the debit card, the backup plan, the one who always showed up. But that version of me was gone. Buried with the fake image of a family I finally stopped chasing. Still, I had questions, and a part of me, small, cautious human, wanted to know the truth. So I didn't call. I emailed. "Hey, I got your message. I'm sorry to hear he's in the hospital. I hope he's okay. Can you send me details? Diagnosis, location, visiting hours, who's with him. I'll reach out once I know more." Adam, no. Mom. No warmth, no emotional bait. She didn't reply until the next day, and when she did, it was a 3-line email with a photo attachment. He had chest pains. They kept him overnight for tests. Tyler is with him now. Tacoma General, room 432. Let me know if you're coming. The photo. Tyler standing next to Dad's hospital bed, grinning like he was in a selfie at a theme park. Dad looked, pale eyes, half-open tubes in his arm, but Tyler had tagged it. Number family first. I didn't go. Not that day. Not the next. I figured if they wanted Tyler to be the hero so badly, they could have him. I wasn't going to fight for a role I never auditioned for. But the longer I thought about it, the more it twisted in my chest, because suddenly everything clicked. All the snide comments, all the guilt-tripping, the demand for the deed, the twisting of the narrative. It wasn't just favoritism, it was positioning. They were rebranding, rewriting history. And Tyler, he wasn't just the golden boy. He was the replacement, the new loyal son, the one who stayed close, smiled for pictures, and played the part. And me, I was being slowly deleted. Like a bad draft they regretted ever publishing. That's when I knew this wasn't over. Not by a long shot. They hadn't just burned a bridge. They tried to bury me under it. And I wasn't going to let them. So I started planning. Not out of spite. Not even out of vengeance, really, but out of principle. Because if you let people rewrite your story without pushing back, they'll sell it to everyone as the truth. And my truth, it was time they remembered who I really was. The first step was legal. I reached back out to Marisol, my attorney, who helped me transfer the house into a trust last year. She was sharp, no nonsense, and extremely good at keeping receipts. We met for coffee and I laid everything out. The manipulation, the smear campaign, the request to sign over the deed. She raised an eyebrow. "They asked you to gift them the house." "Yeah, I said it would be cleaner that it's their home." She snorted. "That's adorable." Then her face turned serious. "Do you want to keep the house?" I hesitated. "I don't know," I said. "I don't want to live in it, but I'm not just going to give it to them after everything." She leaned back. "Okay then, let's make sure they can't touch it. Not now. Not ever." We reviewed the trust. It was already airtight, but she suggested we add a clause that prevented any unauthorized tenancy or modification. In short, they could live there while I allowed it. But if they tried to force my hand, I could legally have them removed. It felt cold, harsh even, but it also felt like armor. Step 2, information. I needed to know what was really going on with Dad, not through the family grapevine, through facts. So I called Tacoma General and asked to speak to the attending physician for room 432. I was listed as an emergency contact, still had power of attorney too. Another detail they'd conveniently forgotten. The doctor was kind, professional. He had some minor arrhythmia, she explained. Stress-induced most likely. Nothing immediately life-threatening. We're monitoring, but he's stable. Will he need long-term care? Not unless his condition worsens, but we're recommending some major lifestyle changes. That hit me sideways because I knew what that meant. Diet routine, blood pressure meds, and no more chain smoking in the garage or drinking 3 beers before dinner. Basically everything my dad hated. I thanked her and hung up. Tyler hadn't posted anything since the photo, but Mom had. A long Facebook post with a soft filtered picture of Dad in bed. She wrote, "Prayers needed. It's been a scary few days, but we're staying strong. Thank you to our amazing son Tyler for staying by our side through all of this. He's been a rock." There it was. No mention of me again, just Tyler, the rock, the hero, the revised son. And then the final straw landed in my inbox. A forwarded email from Marisol. Subject line: notice of change request, property occupancy transfer. It was from a local property attorney asking if I would consider signing over occupancy rights of the property to the long-term residents Michael and Linda Thomas for stability and legal clarity. They were trying to squat in my house using legal channels. Marisol included a note. "Let me know how you want to play this. We can shut it down today or use it to apply some pressure. I stared at the screen for a long time. Then I wrote back, don't shut it down yet. I want to see how far they'll go, but give me everything. Every email, every request, every scrap of paper they've submitted, because if they wanted to play this like a game of chess, they forgot I'd built the board. The next part of the plan, information control. I reached out to Aunt Denise again. She was the only one in the family who still had some moral compass and, more importantly, the only one who saw the change in my parents and Tyler for what it really was. We met up at her place for tea. I told her the whole story. The lies, the attempts to grab the house, the photo ops, the quiet eraser. She shook her head slowly, hands wrapped around her mug. I knew your mom was spiraling, but this is something else. She's rewriting everything I said, and Tyler's letting her, encouraging her. Denise looked at me, eyes sharp. Then it's time to give her a new ending. I smiled. Exactly. She agreed to be my point of contact, eyes on the ground. The one who could confirm what they were telling the extended family and subtly correct the narrative when needed. Then, almost as an afterthought, she added, you know there's a family reunion in 2 months, right? I hadn't. I'd probably been left off the list. She pulled out her phone. Show me the Facebook group chat. Sure enough, no invite. That could be your moment, she said. I nodded slowly. She didn't need to say it twice. I spent the next few weeks quietly stacking dominoes. I updated the utilities again this time, making sure every bill sent paper copies to my Seattle address instead of the house. I rerouted all communications through my personal legal email. No more calls, no more texts, only paper trails. And then I made a final decision. I was going to sell the house. Not out of spite, but because it was time. I didn't want the responsibility anymore. The memory of that house, once warm and full of childhood echoes, was tainted. Now I'd let them stay long enough. I'd paid their dues long enough. They wanted it. They could have it at market rate. From a buyer I'd pick. I listed it quietly. Pocket listing, no signs, no online photos, just word of mouth through my real estate agent. It wouldn't be on the market forever, but the moment it sold, the game would change permanently. And just like that, the pieces were in place. They thought they were playing checkers, but I had the queen. 2 months later, the reunion date rolled around like an alarm I hadn't set. I hadn't been invited, of course. Aunt Denise had to forward me the details. An outdoor potluck at my parents' place, same backyard where that infamous steak dinner happened. The idea of it made my stomach twist in some unnameable way, like returning to a crime scene where I wasn't the victim, just the cleanup crew. But this time, I wouldn't be there to keep the peace. I'd be there to end the story. The house had gone under contract 2 weeks earlier. A quiet, clean offer from a retired couple relocating from Oregon. They loved the location, didn't mind the outdated kitchen, and paid in cash. Full asking price. My realtor, Kevin, was a magician. We closed in less than 10 days. The trust still owned the home, which meant my name wasn't publicly attached, something I'd done to protect myself early on. But now it gave me the gift of timing. Once the sale finalized, I had full control of when and how to serve notice. I chose reunion day seemed poetic, but I didn't want it to come as an envelope in a mailbox. I wanted it to be seen, so I printed 20 copies of the notice. Notice to vacate premises. Property has been sold. New ownership has authorized formal termination of any informal occupancy. Residents are required to vacate within 30 days of this notice pursuant to RCW 59.18.650. I had them folded neatly and stacked in a manila folder. On top, a clean print out of the property deed transfer with the date and buyer's names highlighted. My legal team had also prepared a formal cease and desist should anyone try to block the sale retroactively. The whole thing was about as airtight as it gets. Now came the hard part, showing up. I didn't do drama. I didn't want a scene, but I also didn't want this to be some abstract thing they'd find out about over email. No. If they were going to lie about me in front of family, parade around like I was some heartless son who abandoned them, then I'd give them something to talk about. I pulled into the driveway that afternoon in a quiet black rental. Didn't want them recognizing my usual car and locking the doors. Aunt Denise met me 3 houses down and walked me through the side yard like we were sneaking into a movie. "Everyone's here," she whispered. "Even cousins you haven't seen in years. Be ready." The backyard was packed, folding tables, plastic chairs, tubs of potato salad, and cheap beer. My mom stood at the grill wearing that same fake smile she always wore when guests were around. Tyler held court near the gazebo, red Solo cup in one hand, sunglasses on despite the shade. I waited until he launched into another one of his stories. Something about his e-commerce startup that was definitely going to be in Forbes soon. People were half listening, half nodding. My mom laughed louder than necessary like applause after a mediocre joke. That's when I stepped into the view. It took about 4 seconds for the air to change. I watched the smile on my mother's face freeze, then collapse. Tyler turned smirk already forming until he saw what I was holding. A folder, a quiet thin folder, but he knew me well enough to sense danger when I was calm. "Hey," I said loud enough for the group to hush. "Figured I'd drop by." My mom's jaw clenched. "This is a private gathering." I nodded. "Oh, I know. Don't worry, I won't stay. Just here to deliver something." I walked up to the center table, set the folder down, and opened it. I pulled out a copy of the deed and held it up like a teacher at the front of the room. "Just wanted everyone here to know," I said, voice steady, "that this house, the one we're standing in, it's been sold." Gasps, a dropped fork. Aunt Karen's eyes went wide. Tyler stepped forward. "What the heck are you talking about?" I turned to him. "You remember how you said I was trying to control the family with my money? How you and Mom said I never really gave the house to them? Well, I finally agreed with you." I turned back to the group. "I've been paying every bill on this place for 5 years. Mortgage paid off, utilities covered, insurance, taxes, water, internet, all under my name. But apparently none of that meant anything. So I decided to end the confusion." I pointed at the deed. "This house was mine legally, and now it's someone else's." My mom's voice finally broke through. "Shrill, you're doing this in front of everyone at a family gathering? You made this public the second you started telling people Tyler had done more than I ever would? You wanted to erase me, fine? Let me disappear properly?" Tyler laughed, but it cracked midway. "They can't just kick us out. That's illegal." I smiled at him. "You'd be right if you were tenants, but you're not. You've never paid rent, never signed a lease. You're guests. And guests can be asked to leave." I handed him one of the notices. "You have 30 days. People started murmuring. My cousin Jenna whispered something to her husband. Uncle Brian, always the loudmouth, stood up and said, Wait, you mean to tell us you paid for this place?" I nodded. Every cent. No one else contributed a dime. My mom looked like she wanted to scream. Instead, she went cold. "This is petty. You're throwing your own parents out on the street." "No," I said, soft and level. "I'm giving you the same freedom you gave me." "None." Tyler tried a last swing. "You think this makes you look good? You just nuked your family over some Facebook posts." I tilted my head. "No, I nuked it when you tried to rewrite history. When you told everyone I was never there, when you stood there and smiled while Mom said you had done more." He stepped forward, face inches from mine. "You think this is over?" I leaned in. "It was over the moment you posted that selfie." I turned and left before anyone could follow. The silence behind me was thick like a church just after someone swore at the altar. I didn't look back. 3 weeks later, I got a call from Marisol. "They've moved out," she said. "Keys were left in the mailbox. Place is empty." "Any issues?" "Just a few passive-aggressive notes, but no damage. The buyers are happy." I nodded, even though she couldn't see me. "Good." And that was that. I never got a thank you. Never got a call. Just a few indirect jabs from relatives who didn't understand why I had to make it so public. But the ones who mattered, the ones who knew what really happened, they sent quiet messages of support. I had no idea. Good for you. About time someone called them out. I moved to a new place shortly after. A real house this time. Mine. No shared walls, no memories baked into the paint. I filled it slowly. Bought furniture I actually liked. Learned to cook more than just eggs and rice. And for the first time, when I sat in my living room with the windows open and the breeze slipping through the curtains, I felt light. Not victorious, not smug, just free. Because the best revenge isn't anger, it's peace. And peace is finally knowing you were never the problem. You were the solution they never deserved.